What's more addictive, social media or smoking?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. I talked to psychologists about this. It's a different type of addiction, right? So smoking is a substance addiction. So there's actually chemicals nicotine can get through the blood-brain barrier, and it can mess around directly with your neurons. So that's really strong. And when you have a substance addiction, you can feel strong physical withdrawal symptoms, for example, if you stop using it. Phone addiction, psychologists tend to categorize as a moderate behavioral addiction, which means, okay, if I take away your phone, like it might be difficult, but you're not going to have the same type of withdrawal you would have if you were like an alcoholic and you were being taken away from alcohol. But moderate behavioral addictions lead you to using something much more than you know is healthy if you have access to it. So it's just like if I put the bowl of potato chips in front of you every day, you're going to eat probably way too many potato chips, right? But if I don't, you're not going to sneak out in the middle of the night to go buy it. So that's where we are probably with the phones, is that if we have it with us, we're going to use it more than we think is healthy, right? So if you go back to the beginning of the consumer-facing smartphone era, so like the iPhone in 2007, I went back and talked to the original development lead for the first iPhone. And what he confirmed is there was nothing about this tech that meant for you to look at it all the time, right? Steve Jobs was a minimalist.
Right.
His whole thing was, I want to take something that's really important to you, and then I want to make the experience beautiful. And so for him, it was playing music. Music was incredibly important.
It was big.
Yeah, and everyone was listening to iPods, right?
Yeah.
And so the iPhone had a touch screen, and he was like, look, I can make the experience of playing music even more beautiful. And he was offended by the interfaces on cell phones at that time.
Wow.
He's like, phone calls are important. I want to make that a beautiful experience. I want to put them in one device, so you don't have to have an iPod and a phone both in your pocket. And that was from like 2007 to 2012. That was smartphones. It was this beautiful tool that you brought out occasionally to do specific things. Like I want to listen to a song, I want to call my mom, I want to look up directions, right? Around 2011, 2012, the social media companies were now past the stage of just we're trying to grow and saying we actually have to get our revenue up, because it was the Facebook IPO in particular, right? How are we going to get people to engage much more on our services? Because the Facebook.com was pretty static, right? I mean, you would go check your friend's relationship status, but if you checked it in the morning, it was probably not going to change that day. It's not something you would spend all day looking at, right? And so they completely re-engineered the experience to be not about posting and reading other people's posts, but instead about social approval indicators.
Wow.
And this is when we got the likes and the retweets and the favorites and the photo auto tag. So now every time you hit this app, you could see some indications. Are people approving of me? Or people thinking of me? And that's what changed our relationship with the phones, from this Jobsian vision of this is a beautiful object that does a few things really well, into I have to look at this when I'm walking the dog, I have to look at this when I'm in the bathroom, I have to look at this when I'm in the line. There was nothing fundamental about the tech that said we need to be looking at this all the time.
Wow.
That was essentially a business model that was proved very effective.
Very effective.
Yeah.
Very addictive.
So for young people, so Generation Z, which is the first generation to have sort of ubiquitous access to smartphone social media as they entered their young adolescence, this generation, that's where anxiety-related disorders were literally off the charts. So the demographers that measure different traits of generations and see how traits change from generation to generation had never seen something change that severely. So it was off their charts.
Wow.
Looking at anxiety and anxiety-related disorders, and the turning point from this was, if you were born just late enough to have social media and smartphones, like when you entered junior high.
When you were like 10.
Yeah. And so this is off the charts. I had been hearing this informally from mental health experts on college campuses, where they would tell me like it was crazy, it was overnight. They used to have the standard array of mental health issues, sort of a cross-section of what you would expect, like a country as a whole, and then it just shifted overnight. It was all anxiety-related disorders, and it was like 5x more students coming in than they ever used to got before.
Wow.
And they would say it was the students who started arriving on campus with smartphones. It was like that year. Because we're not wired for it, right? So what do we need to flourish as human beings? You take on responsibility for friends, family, close friends, community. Take on responsibility, commit to them. I'm going to sacrifice for you, you'll sacrifice for me, I'm going to be involved.
Yeah.
You do activity that has intrinsic quality, right? So you go out there to, I want to do things with my time that itself is high quality, and there's value in just doing that. And then in your professional life, you look to make impact. Like, you do these things. It's not a secret formula. This is what we've always needed, is the nutriments of human flourishing.
Right.
And so this is the issue with the phone is, and again, like the social media companies want it all to be about utility. It's not useless to be on Facebook, but it's not the issue. It's that this has become so compulsive that it's taken us away from these things that we absolutely need to flourish. So you take those all away and you just do this instead, you're going to be anxious.
You get dumber.
You're going to get dumber.
Yeah.
It's going to impede professional progress, and then life gets really hard, and then you need this more and more to escape. I mean, when things become dangerous in our life is when you start using them to escape harder things that you don't want to confront. And so then it becomes a cycle. So then like I'm probably not doing what I should be doing with my life.
When you feel guilty, you
feel
beat yourself
guilty,
up.
and so you escape the guilt by
Wow.
going back to this, and it's a cycle.